Your Eminence, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, as President of CARITAS International in particular, you've traveled to different parts of the world and you've seen difficulties that women, children and men face. Taking into consideration that there are many NGOs and many organizations that do humanitarian and CSR work these days, can you share with us how the Church is differentiating its social mission to the world today, to the wounded, to the poor, and even to refugees?
That's an important question, Andre. If you look at the activities of the Church, especially through its social humanitarian arm like Caritas and other affiliated organizations, some people will say externally there is no difference. They'll say just like the other NGOs or the other people organizations, we see the same action: feeding the hungry, giving clothing to the naked, etc. But in the end, even the people that we serve sense a difference. What is the motivation of Christians? And it's simply faith. It's simply faith. It is a faith that impels us to a lifestyle of loving and sharing in a disinterested manner. When we say disinterested, it doesn't mean we are not interested in others, no? But disinterested in the sense that we will love anyone, even those who do not belong to our religious affiliation.
Unconditionally.
Unconditionally. And we will serve you. We will not ask what your religion is, your nationality, etc., your background. We see a neighbor, we see a brother, a sister, and that vision comes from our faith, inspiration. And we will serve you not expecting anything in return. We are not expecting you to join us. So this is not a bribe. This is not some sort of emotional blackmail that if you don't agree to our terms, then you will not get the food. No. And we purify our motivations also, because it's part of human weakness is this mixed motivation. But when the motivation is purely out of faith and love, then even the people whom we serve sense that.
Right. What other challenges does the Church face in fulfilling its social mission in the world today?
A lot of challenges, aside from the constant humanitarian response to survivors both of natural calamities and human-made calamities. Now, I think one big challenge to the Church is advocacy. We cannot allow people to live perpetually on an emergency mode of existence. Part of our help is to shorten the period of emergency so that as dignified human beings, they can start rebuilding their lives in a more stable manner. That is becoming more and more difficult, especially with the refugee problems, where countries do not accept refugees and they cannot return to their homeland. How do they start rebuilding their lives? But there enters another form of challenge. It's advocacy. How could the Church, in the fulfillment of its social mission, be the voice of the voiceless, so that the political community, the international community could review its policies, its political will, and the relationship among nations, so that the problems causing this great humanitarian crisis could be addressed from the root, and we hope completely. And that's not easy.
How is the Church's social mission perceived by governments and institutions when we offer assistance?
No, generally, governments even international organizations like the United Nations, welcome the church's social engagement. We have to say, however, that some governments that are suspicious of religious groups also register such a suspicion towards the church's social mission. But by and large, I think we have experienced so much trust and confidence. The United Nations under Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has affirmed the work of the church and CARITAS as even a model, to governments and NGOs. So we tell ourselves that we must be doing something good.
On the flip side, Your Eminence, how do we view then our social mission in countries where governments are happy to leave it to the church to take care of its own poor, including education for its population, so that the government itself actually does not need to fulfill its own moral and social obligations to its people? Is that morally right for us to continue supporting such situations?
I think we really have to make a distinction. Supporting the poor, that will always be an obligation for us. Now, the issue of is our help for the poor being misused by agencies, like even governments, so that they could continue their merry way, neglecting the poor, and making use of our mission as an excuse. That's a different matter. For me, it is not. We should address it as a separate matter. We should not stop helping the poor simply because our activity is being misused by another group. Then we have to face the government. We have to face the other groups and say, look, the problem is immense. The challenge is overwhelming. No single group could address it. The church cannot assume all the responsibility. Now, and we are here because we realize even the government cannot solve everything. So let us work hand in hand, And
so it's always in a partnership.
Partnership, collaboration. But when we notice that something is not anymore in harmony with the spirit of collaboration, then I think it is our obligation, in the name of the poor, to call the attention of the other partners. But not for me. I would not have the heart to say, let us abandon the poor and let this government take over. What if the government does not? We should not punish the poor. We should challenge the governments and the other organizations.
And so that's the other role, actually, that Caritas can play, for that matter.
Yes. And I can speak for my experience in the Philippines. I'm so much elated these past 2 years when business groups, and even government offices have been inviting me and other bishops to explain to them the social doctrines of the church. They said, we need to learn from the wisdom of the church. So we said, okay, this is one way of enhancing partnership. They understand where we are coming from, our vision, that we are not a parallel government, that we are not simply a service organization. We're motivated by faith, but there is a wisdom that only the faith could give, and which governments and NGOs could, welcome into their system.
I think best of all, non-threatening.
Yes, non-threatening. That's true.
Okay, Your Eminence, now poverty is not always the lack of material goods.
Yes.
In well-developed countries and economies especially, there are families and individuals who are robbed of time for each other by long hours of work. And then of course there are also things like drugs and other vice. How can the church respond to these ills of our time, made more difficult by technology and new media,
Yes.
for that matter.
Yes. Yes, I know. The church, in its social teachings, which are based on the vision of the Bible, our focus is always the human person, the good of the human person. And when we maintain that perspective, and we are honest, and we are humble, in evaluating what is happening to the human person, then the next thing that we review is the so-called models of development. Are they really enhancing the full development of the human person? Very often we realize that development of the human person is reduced to, just like, as you said, the material component, which are necessary elements.
Sure.
Food, shelter, education, all of those things, having enough money, they are needed for a decent and dignified human life. But even in the most just society, where everything is provided for, there is a deeper dimension of the human person that needs to be addressed. The need to be loved, the need to belong, the need to have a family or a community to assure you that you are worthwhile, and it's not just what you wear, what you eat that gives you worth. It is the other person showing you love, spending time with you. And that is always the critical voice of the church. That's why we question, are the models of development being proposed nowadays so much tied to technology, profit, etc.? Are these models of development truly developing developing the human person in all the aspects of human life? And so we need to be also brave, courageous in adopting lifestyles, ways of living together, so that could be in a way counter-cultural, but we need to show society that there is joy, there is dignity, in a holistic lifestyle, even if it means less of profit, less of material goods,
Absolutely.
but richer in time to be spent with other people. But it requires a real courage to be counter-cultural in a way.
At the end of the day, it's the individual's choice as well.
Yes.
You've got to make a concerted choice.
And that's also the beauty of having a vibrant parish or a vibrant Christian community or an organization to which I belong, so that when I make a personal choice, I know there are some friends or brothers and sisters who share my conviction, who will not look at me with disdain and hopefully would share with me the same lifestyle, the same choices. Then that could be supported.
Each other as well.
Uplift. Then that could be the seed sown, and then slowly it will spread and convince a wider society or culture.
Now, in your work with the poor, Your Eminence, how would you respond to people who ask you, where is God in all our sufferings?
Yeah. That there are some questions that I guess you just let the person asking it ask it. And many of them ask it without really expecting you to give a rational answer.
Sure.
Yeah. And for me, the best response is just to be there, just to listen to them. And for me, I'm very happy that they're seeking for God. Sometimes when I hear that from the poor, I thank them, because in their poverty, they should be asking, where do I get the next meal? Where can I earn more money? But they ask, where is God? And then I ask myself, how often do I look for God? How often?
So they help sensitize you
as well. And then even if I cannot give the answer, I know that I have a companion here who searches for God. And you look at them, you listen to them, and I say, you're looking for God? I mean, God is in you. God is with you. I just saw God in you. I just listened to God in you. Where is God in all this? I will say, God is in the hungry, in the thirsty. God is calling the whole world to continue loving, to open its eyes. So you are the presence of God in us.
From your perspective, Your Eminence, and from what you've seen, give us an idea of how you think the church in Singapore is responding to the needs of the social mission field.
What I've seen so far, or have heard so far, has been quite edifying. Even if Singapore is taunted as one of the most affluent countries in the world, and the social services are in place, and wow, how society and the government try to provide to its citizens the best quality of life that could be given to citizens. What edified me was, in spite of all that, the social mission of the church is honest in admitting no system is good enough to eradicate poverty and social ills. And I'm very happy that it did not remain on the abstract level. Specific sectors have been identified.
That's correct.
Right? And we need to put a face to statistics. We need to put a face to ideas. And I think that's the way the Singapore church has been going, and that would be its greatest contribution to the whole country. Not just to talk about statistics, even if research is important, but to put a human face. Who is this low-wage earner? Who is this mother who wants to earn more but cannot because she needs a workplace that is close to her flat, because she has 5 children? I mean, if that story is presented to policymakers, then I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
it may move mountains.
Yes. And so I think the Singapore Church and the CARITAS Singapore has put its finger on the right path. Put a human face, tell stories, so that policymakers could understand better.
Sure. Yeah. And as you said, while we put the human face, how do you think ordinary Singaporeans, ordinary Catholic Singaporeans, can respond to the call of the church to expand, strengthen, and maybe even extend the visible face of God in our wounded society today?
There is a value to teaching, a value to seminars, but a living encounter with the poor, face-to-face encounter, entering their flat or entering their shanties, holding the hand of a suffering mother, all of those I think that will help even ordinary Catholics to expand their vision. You know, it is by getting in touch with human beings and then seeing in them a brother, a sister, and then somehow in that encounter you also see yourself in them, and the barriers are torn, they collapse, and then your heart expands. But it must be rooted in a living encounter, which you bring to prayer. And then you realize you also have encountered the Lord there. And this expansion of the heart. So spirituality, prayer, and the mission, they all come together. And I hope there will be more opportunities for Singaporean Catholics to get in touch with the poor. Some of them are hiding, you know, and but they have something to share and they have something to contribute to us.
Your Eminence, thank you so much. You have touched so many Singaporeans just being with us this short time. Thank you so much for your time and for your blessings.
Thank you too. Thank you very much. Thank you.